Without fiction, how dull our life would be. Hello everyone! From now on, we start a new journey on fiction. Each time we pick up a storybook, we have the same expectation that can be heard in a child who begs. Tell me something funny. Human beings have enjoyed stories ever since they learned to speak. Whatever the motive for creating stories, even if simply to delight or instruct, the basic human impulse to tell and hear stories existed long before the development of written language. The Jewish historian Yuval Harari said in his book, A Brief History of Humankind, "What makes human beings different from other animals is that humans tell stories and believe them." Theme, character, and plot are the main components of fiction. And structure is like a string to collect all those elements. A story is nothing without the support of structure, which is the bone of it. Structure is the way for the author to display its theme, to arrange the characters, and organize the plot. Different structures reveal the different cultures underneath the arrangement. For example, Journey to the West has the typical structure of Chinese fiction. It has 100 chapters with dozens of independent stories with one common theme, to gain the true scriptures in Western paradise. The main character, Sun Wukong, is a monkey with great magical powers. He's a righteous and brave hero who has mastered 72 methods of transformation. Unlike conventional heroes, Wukong departs from tradition and fights for freedom. He defeated powerful demons on the pilgrimage and helped Tang Sen get the true scriptures. Now, let's see the plot of the first 7 chapters about the preliminary episode before Wukong joined the pilgrims' party. The start of the story was the birth of a stone monkey with magical powers. The monkey was clever, but he was also conceited. He had enough monkey magic to push his way into heaven, but he had not enough sanity and balance to live peacefully here. There was something raw and mischievous and rebellious in him. And that's why, when he entered heaven, he created a huge chaos there. Like a wild lion let loose from a cage in the streets of a city. Through his inborn mischief and raw character, he spoiled the annual dinner party given by the Queen Mother of Heaven to all the gods, saints, and immortals, just because he was enraged by not being invited. And then he drank and made a scene in the feast. Half intoxicated, he tumbled into the hall and ate up the magic peaches laid out at the table. Finally, still in disguise, he left heaven and went back to his monkey kingdom in Huaguo Mountain, and set up a banner of rebellion against heaven, writing on it the words, "The great sage equal to heaven." There followed terrific combats between this monkey and the heavenly warriors. The monkey was not captured until he was put under the 5-finger mountain by Buddha. Thus lived the curtain of the lantern story of pilgrimage. This episode itself is a whole story, and it's also one part of a bigger narration. In the latter part, Tang Sen, protected by his 3 disciples, was engaged in a journey to Western paradise to obtain the true scriptures. The dangers or monsters they met on their way to West from the different stories of how this group overcame all the obstacles and accomplished the task. All those stories follow a similar structure. First, the appearance of an obstacle, then struggle with it, and the final victory. The structure is quite clear and simple, even though the stories are complicated. By comparison, the Western fiction usually goes the other way. Simple story with complicated structure. Ulysses, written by James Joyce, is considered to be one of the top 10 most famous fiction in the Western literature.
James Joyce's Ulysses is widely considered to be both a literary masterpiece and one of the hardest works of literature to read. It inspires such devotion that once a year, on a day called Bloomsday, thousands of people all over the world dress up like the characters, take to the streets and read the book aloud. And some even make a pilgrimage to Dublin just to visit the places so vividly depicted in Joyce's opus. So what is it about this famously difficult novel that inspires so many people?
The story itself is rather simple. A half-Jewish advertising man, Leopold Bloom, avoided going home on June 16, 1904, because he knew his wife Molly was to have an affair. The 700-page long story just depicts Bloom's wandering in the Dublin streets for 18 hours. He went to a funeral, his workplace, a pub, and met a young man named Stephen, who was the main character in Joyce's earlier novel, a portrait of the artist and the young man. Stephen was depressed because of his mother's recent death.
Stephen closed his eyes to hear his boots crush, crackling wrack and shells. You are walking through it howsomever. I am, a stride at a time. A very short space of time through very short times of space. 5, 6, the Nachainander. Exactly. And that is the ineluctable modality of the audible. Open your eyes. No, Jesus! If I fell over a cliff that beetles o'er his base, fell through the Nemenainander, ineluctably. I'm getting on nicely in the dark.
What's really interesting is the structure of the novel. It has 18 chapters. Each chapter is named after a character or episode from Homer's epic, Odyssey. But the seemingly parallel structure is a disguise. Readers never know what will happen next. For example, Homer's Odyssey, after a 20-year long journey, returns home to Ithaca and reunited with his faithful wife. While in Ulysses, Bloom wandered about Dublin for a day and returns home to his unfaithful wife. The last chapter, Penelope, Odysseus' wife, gives no definite ending, but putting the readers to a larger maze by showing Molly's stream of consciousness in just 8 long paragraphs with almost no punctuation. The story jumps from one scene to another, like a forever flowing stream without start nor ending. For example, chapter 15 is a play. 13 is likely a cheesy romance novel. 12 is a story with strange, exaggerated interruptions. 11 is to imitate music, and 14 reproduces the evolution of English literary prose style. Each chapter has its own style with a different structure, and the story as a whole is like a spider's web with divergent focuses. The different structures of Journey to the West and Ulysses reflect two kinds of mindset. Chinese way is linear. There must be a start as well as an ending to every story. It's like a 糖葫芦, with one theme like the stick runs through the sugar balls of separate parts. In other words, Chinese tend to follow a fixed mode and put things in a fixed pattern. Creation and innovation are not encouraged. By contrast, Western way is web-like. There is no definite center to focus on, and there are few stereotypes to confine imagination. Western writers don't care so much about wholesome and are not a big fan of repetition. Even if a structure is borrowed from ancient epics, it would also have the imprint of originality. Now, let's summarize what we've learned in this part. Chinese fiction usually has a fixed structure with clarified start, climax, and ending, which is always a happy one for most stories. Because Chinese culture emphasizes order, authority, and obedience, and there are few outlets for exception. Western fiction usually uses more complicated structure with more abundant characters, plots, and unexpected endings, which reflect their emphasis on creation and originality. Here are 3 questions for you to think about and try to answer. First question, what's the structure in Chinese classic Journey to the West? The structure is rather simple. All 100 chapters are around one theme, which runs through several independent short stories. And each short story follows the similar structure as the encounter with an obstacle, fight with it, and finally get the obstacle out of the way. There is a fixed pattern of the structure. Second question, what's the structure in Ulysses? The structure in Ulysses is quite complicated, even though the story itself is simple. There are 18 chapters altogether, and each one has its unique theme and structure. It's impossible to predict what the protagonists will do next. There's no definite ending of the story, and the last chapter can be subject to different interpretations. Third question, what's the difference in the structure of the 2 books and what makes the difference? The difference is quite obvious. One structure is simple and crystal clear by following a fixed and repetitive pattern. The other is complicated and ambiguous, and there's no clue for the development of the story. Such difference is the result of different mindsets in 2 different cultures. Chinese one is linear and emphasizes on a clear start and ending, while the Western mindset is web-like. There is no definite focus in a story, and creativity is greatly encouraged.